Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to the Radical Edge of HR. And I'm your host, Tanya Holly. And of course, I'm with HR Knowledge Source. And I'm so happy to be with you once again. And I always bring the experts and have one of my favorites here once again to discuss today's topic, which is coping with layoffs and grief. I know it sounds kind of sad, but we're here to help. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest who's been here before. She's a regular. Please welcome back Miss Ursula May. Hey, Ursula.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Ursula, can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we officially get started?
Absolutely. It's such an honor to be a part of today's discussion and to be able to provide some great information to the audience. But my background encompasses over 20 years of professional experience, which a decade of that has been devoted to human resource leadership, talent acquisition, and recruitment, as well as career coaching. And I've been in the space of empowering and supporting companies and candidates to really meet their career and staffing potential and goals. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. You did that so well in such a brief, you summed it up because I know you could probably talk with all your experience for quite some time. So thank you. You did that very
thank
well.
you.
And as you see, everybody, we got the expert here to talk about this. So let's go ahead and dive in. And if you're joining us, if you're watching, listening, if you're joining us right now, I know some of you will watch this later or listen later. Please go ahead and say hello to us in the comments so we know you're here. So let's go ahead and dive into coping with layoffs and griefs. So, from your perspective, Ursula, what are the most common emotional challenges professionals face right after being laid off? And how can they healthily acknowledge these feelings? So it's okay to have them, but how can they acknowledge them and maintain the momentum they need to keep looking for a job?
Great question, Tanya. I'll say this, that losing someone or losing something of value of importance is never easy. And
Mm-hmm.
I say that it creates an emotional roller coaster for us. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is a psychiatrist as well as an author,
Mm-hmm.
she explains it the best in her it's a 5-stage of grief model, and it starts with shock and denial. When we get that unfavorable news, sometimes it just takes our body and our minds into this ultimate shock, and then
Mm-hmm.
we have to digest what just happened, and how that's going to impact really the rest of my day, my year, my month. Then also
Mm-hmm.
she talks about anger and frustration. You put a lot of time into our jobs and our careers where we're having to make sacrifices, and sometimes those sacrifices also impedes our ability to be present with our family and friends and even ourselves. Then also bargaining. Sometimes we think about, what could we have done differently, or maybe if I would have done this, or if I would have done that, maybe the outcome would have been a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Then she talks about sadness and depression. Then we get into a place where it's sometimes can be considered embarrassing, or what are we going to do next? How are we going to explain this to our family, friends, in our network? And then the acceptance piece, where we then figure out, okay, you know what? I got to keep moving.
Yeah.
I know I need another opportunity. I have commitments, financial and personal commitments, and I've got to keep moving. But it also converts some additional emotional feelings such as shame, doubt, distrust, guilt,
Mm-hmm.
blame, relief, also fear. And then ultimately, it can impede, or I should say, impact our physical emotions, such as we become fatigued and have sleep disturbance,
Mm-hmm.
or even loss of appetite. And so, some of the ways that we can acknowledge healthily acknowledge these feelings while still maintaining the momentum
Mm-hmm.
is to really understand that it's not you. Okay. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
reflection of your self worth or value, that you still are the prize. And that sometimes businesses, and I had to learn this in my career as well as a business owner, that sometimes businesses have to make those unfavorable decisions that impact their most valuable assets, which are their people. And so it's okay to be still and take in the emotions because we
Mm-hmm.
are humans, but realizing that and reminding ourselves through affirmations, writing down, or even soliciting some external support, that we're going to get through this. We're going to push through it.
Wow, that was a lot. That was great. What is interesting to me is that, even the topic that we chose, we added the word grief to it. We said coping with layoffs is one thing,
Mhm.
but we said and grief. And when you think about, usually the word grief we equate to death, losing a loved one or friend or whatever, but usually it's equated to death, but that's not, it's a loss. So in this case, it's a
Yeah.
loss of a job. So I thought the wording that we chose was powerful, because I don't know that I would have equated the word to layoffs, to losing a job.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I love how you summarize it and explain. You can go through those same things, grief about losing a job, because it's kind of like a death. You've lost something in some instances, a very long time. It's so much a part of you, that it truly is like a death. So those were great, because recovering from this is the same. The stages are the same, and I would not have thought of that personally, but until you are there, and you may not realize. I'm glad we're talking about it, because people may not realize they're going through grief. Um,
Mhm.
so thank,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it births new experiences, right? New
Hmm.
opportunities. So it
Yes.
doesn't allow you to, it's really trying to kick through and push through, not settling into those emotions, but embracing them
Hmm.
and pushing
Hmm.
through. That's
Yes.
the most important. Mhm.
So let's talk about the job market. So we talk about layoffs, it kind of goes along with the job market, and it's in an interesting, we'll talk about that later, interesting position now where we are right now. But in regards to the job market, it's been pretty volatile in recent years. So how can job seekers develop resilience but maintain confidence when facing rejection or extended period of layoffs?
Well, I'll tell you, the market right now is saturated. There's been a lot of shifts from the
Mhm.
beginning of this year. Forbes has a article out this month called "Big Layoffs Are Hitting These Sectors the Hardest," and in this article, it references that there has been well over 220,000 job losses or eliminated
Wow.
since the beginning of this year. And that's referenced due to the current administration as well as AI and automations. And
Mm.
so, knowing that, once again, I go back to these decisions are not easy decisions. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
I should say the it being a volatile economic landscape right now, and it's
Mhm.
impacting businesses, which in turn is impacting the people. And so, some things that can be done to help with just that level of resilience and confidence
Mhm.
is number one is recognizing that it's going to take some work, of course, to get back into the market and to
Mhm.
really stand out from your competition.
Mhm.
Also, doing things like upskilling, taking a class to help with those skill gaps or knowledge, or to keep you relevant or keep trends and industry trends
Okay.
up to date as well. Networking, creating
Mhm.
opportunities where you're leveraging the people that are in your network as well as expanding your network. The planning and preparation is super key. So, setting realistic goals. Also, celebrating the small wins. I think with diversifying routines and roadmaps, your weekly roadmaps definitely will help with identifying those key wins, and not so much where you're sitting in front of a computer and you're clicking and you're trying to find a job.
Mhm.
It's more or less diversifying your week. Also, taking time for self-care and taking breaks. Those things are super important to help you reset, refresh, and redefine your approach.
Great. Thank you for those tips, Ursula. You're full of tips today. Thank you so much. Makes a difference to get through that difficult time. Excuse me. So, a lot of people equate their professional identity with their self worth, which is unfortunate. But we do that because I think a lot of times we spend so much time at work or doing our work, it just becomes a part of us, and that's what we identify with. But what advice would you give to someone struggling with this loss of identity after a layoff, especially if they've been there for a long period of time?
Great question. So, just as a reminder, you are the expert. You're the captain of your career journey. You're responsible for building and showcasing your professional brand. I always say that if you have a LinkedIn page, your LinkedIn page does not belong to your company. Your LinkedIn page belongs to you. And so, this is a great way for you to embrace and be able to showcase your professional brand. Also, understanding that you possess the skills, the abilities, the capabilities, the personality, the competence, as well as the knowledge in your field, in your profession. And then now it's time to really be able to shift into a new environment that really is going to embrace and value your offerings, as well as knowing that there's nothing wrong with experiencing new experiences. Okay. And for those loyal professionals, as I refer to them,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with having a level of commitment to your profession and to your employment, but understand that loyalty also should be, you should embrace self loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty for yourself, loyalty for your professional brand. And that doesn't mean that you relax with your high levels of work ethics or etiquettes, but it means that you invest in yourself. And that is once again a ultimate showcase of your self love and care.
I like that. Self-loyalty.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are very loyal to some companies, and the companies are not necessarily loyal to them. But I'm sure that's another conversation.
That is, and I will say with those type, any type of relationship that breaks, it creates sometimes an heartbreak, right? A
Mhm.
disappointment. And so
Mhm.
it begins with understanding the wins and the good experiences that you had, and then
Yes.
also once again resetting yourself to transition into a whole new experience as well.
Yes, I like that resetting. Reset
Hmm.
yourself.
Hmm.
So thank you for that. That's awesome. Yes, self-loyalty. I'm loving that term. So I hope people are getting these nuggets and taking them. So almost our final question. I know you regularly work with both companies and candidates, but what support systems and resources can you recommend to those that are processing grief from a layoff while having to still navigate with other stressful job search processes? You know, they
Okay.
still got to look for a job, but they're struggling with this. Are there resources out there that you can recommend or talk about?
Absolutely. Let me first say that there's not a taboo. There's no stigma around fault when it comes down to layoffs, right?
Mhm.
Because those are the things that we cannot control.
Right.
So, one of the biggest tips that I can give is leveraging or diversifying your support system. And your support system can be both personal, so your loved ones, your dear friends, families, etc.,
Mhm.
as well as professional, and leveraging your colleagues, former employers, and former supervisors or leaders. Also, leveraging any professional affiliations or organizations as well.
Mhm.
Those things are super important when you're building that support system, and it's necessary. Also, exploring outplacement or career transition services.
Mhm.
Those are important as well. Um, and
Mhm.
I will say just a few examples is HRKS actually has a new solution called Career Compass, and it really
Yes.
is in support of individuals that are impacted by recent federal workforce changes. And
Mhm.
so these services are will be offered to federal workers and military and their spouse. And it really provides solutions around expert coaching, strategic career planning, interactive workshops, tailored resources, and much, much more. And so there's some free informationals that are coming up May 28th and June 4th. So if you go to the HRKS website as well as LinkedIn page, you'll be able to get some more information about it. There's some other resources such as Career One Stop, career support networks as well,
Mhm.
job centers, local government programs that help you acclimate back into the workforce. There are financial assistance programs as well, both provided by government and nonprofit agencies, emotional and mental resources, which once again,
Mhm.
there's no taboo when there's a shift. A life
Yes.
change, a sudden life change. It's okay, and it's encouraged to seek to seek services and support,
Yes.
as well as there's job boards that are out there to help individuals in specific industries or maybe even verticals as well. And then another important tip as well is creating or developing a great criteria um, about what is it that you're looking for, both in targeted jobs. So really looking at the personality of a job
Mhm.
and company culture and climate. What type of environment would you thrive in? So really being able to put together your must-haves, your like to haves, as well as your non-negotiables, and all of these things will help guide you through a successful job search process.
All right, everybody. You got a lot of tips here. So, for resources, thank you, Ursula. There's a lot of resources out there. I think to sum up what you were saying is tap into who the networking possibility, and I make a list of who who might be able to help. Don't discount anyone. You just never know where your lead may come for the new position that you might be looking for, as well as the corporations, organizations, and different resources that you mentioned to look into for other help, including HRKS. And again, I'll reiterate that we are having our first workshop next week for mainly focus on federal workers. If you've been impacted by the federal layoffs, please go to our website or go to our LinkedIn page. The information's there. It's a free informational session for you to give you information on that. But in addition to that, all the other resources that Ursula named, please utilize them if you need them, especially the mental health part. I think is very important. We kind of discount that sometimes, and that's just as important as everything else. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Ursula.
Absolutely. And I will be available. I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to look me up, and I'll be more than happy to have some further discussion with you if you have any questions about your recent transition.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you, Ursula May. Her name's Ursula May. It's on the screen. You can find her on LinkedIn. So, in closing, were there any final remarks? Believe it or not, we're just about done here. So, if you have any final remarks you want to leave everyone with, Ursula?
Well, once again, layoffs, there's no taboo, there's no negative stigmatization
Mhm.
around layoffs. Be kind to yourself, be gentle
Mhm.
to yourself through this process. It's not easy, but with persistence and resilience, you definitely can reach your goals by leveraging your network and support team. You definitely can push through some of the
Mhm.
most tough and dark times as well. But just once again, celebrate the wins as much. If you get a new contact, celebrate that. If you get a new lead, celebrate that. All of those things will help you with your week where you don't feel so burnt out and drained.
Yes. Thank you, Ursula. Thanks for joining me again. We appreciate you and your time and your knowledge and for just sharing all this wonderful information with coping with layoffs and grief. So, thank you so much.
My
So,
pleasure.
everybody, that's the end of our time for today. Thank you for watching and listening. Again, if you have any questions or you want to reach out, and if you need assistance with recruiting, we do that too. So there's Ursula right there. Yes. But these things and more, anything HR related, we'll be happy to help you. Reach out. You can follow us and find us at HRKS LLC and all your social media platforms. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We'll see you next time at the Radical Edge of HR. Remember, HRKS, we know HR. Bye, everybody.
Bye.